This is my 2017 Land Rover Discovery Sport. Now I bought this for a steal at $3,700 knowing it had a major engine issue, and in our last video we dove right into it head first to find out what the catastrophic issue with this engine was. And when we opened up the valve cover, the first thing we noticed was the carnage of 10,000 mile oil changes. This is the staining of 250,000 miles, not 113,000. But that wasn't the catastrophic failure that hurt this engine. And in this video, we're going to tear the cylinder head off this engine, tear the timing components off, and we're going to get down to the piston level, and we're going to see what went wrong. And you can see our catastrophic failure that happened here. This piece is cracked all the way through here, and it's literally just the oil rings holding it together. But I'm not going to sit here and babble on about the car. We're going to get right into it. All right, at the end of the last video, we got the valve cover off. Now I want to get the cylinder head off. So we're going to get some things out of our way, like the air box, the intake manifold. We're going to get the exhaust manifold disconnected, which looks a little challenging because the turbo is attached to it. But let's just get some things out of our way so we can get the cylinder head off. The timing chain is still attached at this moment, so we're going to have to get that off as well. Let's start by getting this air box off. Disconnect our mass airflow sensor. There we go. I broke it. Well, we're just not going to need that anymore. We're going to start disconnecting some vacuum lines. There we go. This is the brake booster vacuum line from the intake manifold, and you have to push that red locking ring in to slide the pipe out. There is a green O-ring in there that I'm going to replace once I get the intake manifold off, but that's how you get this off. We're going to move on to these vacuum lines off the intake manifold. I'm not sure why they used a single-use clamp on this middle one. That might have been somebody else did that, but we're going to take that off. I do not like these clamps at all. There we go. We'll replace that with a spring clamp. There's that one. There we go. I'm going to take this line out because it, is just hanging out there. Put that down with the air filter. Now we can just get this stuff out of our way. I'll probably just zip tie this up somewhere. Got this plug here on the intake manifold take off. That's off of there. I need to get down there to the clamp right below the throttle body. We're going to take a wild guess of 7mm. Oh, this is not fun to get to. I know you can't see down there, but I'm taking off the clamp for the throttle body. We need to get our wiring harness disconnected from the manifold. Okay, there's things behind the intake manifold that I cannot get to. One of them being that vacuum line, another one being the throttle body harness, and there's also a line going to the PCV baffle. So there's some things, but we're gonna back the intake manifold off right now and see how many of those we can get to after that. This one bolt is down here in a really tricky spot. Okay, need a little something, something. Let's just play out a bit. There we go. Let's try that. Uh-oh. So we're gonna have to do this a little strategically. Put that in through there. Get lined up. Got him. So let's see, I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What does all data say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. All right. Oh, intake manifold is loose. Trying to get an idea if I can see what our valves look like. Yeah, I mean, they need cleaned. The intake manifold is out. I couldn't film any of it. There's a lot going on behind there. And I almost forgot from the ST just how much was back there, but as you can see, it's out. And now we have access to our starter so we can lock the flywheel when we need to do that. We have access to our intake valves. If you see in there, the valves are pretty crusty. But never to fear, because we're going to clean all that up with some Berrymans when we have the head off. At this point, I think we're going to move on to the exhaust manifold side. This could be a little challenging too. The turbo resides on there and it's different setup than it is on the ST. This isn't just 4 bolts holding the manifold on like the ST is. This is an actual exhaust manifold with the turbo attached to it. I'm hoping not to have to disconnect the downpipe from the catalytic converter. I'm hoping I can just get enough movement to back this off the studs. We'll see. But we got work to do. There's a heat shield we got to get out of our way first. Need to get back here in the back to get this heat shield off of the exhaust manifold. They're not very tight. There's one. Ow. Ugh. Everything hurts me in here. Ugh. There's here and one over here. That'll take this heat shield off. I think we'll switch over to some stubby action. You know what I mean. Okay, now all the bolts are out of this heat shield, supposedly. Let's see if we can get that out of there. Pretty sure these lines back here are getting in my damn way. How do I get them off? Maybe if I can get this side up, I can get the other side up. That is out. I can't even begin to tell you how I got that out. I had to twist and turn, and it's going to be really fun getting it back in. I'll tell you that much. There's two steel lines that go right behind it, and they wouldn't be fun to take off, so I don't know. Anyway, I have my ratchet in place here for the exhaust manifold nuts. So my plan is to take the nuts off and then take the studs out, hopefully. So that way I can just lift the head up out and not have to tweak the manifold back. Getting these loosened up. At this point, I wouldn't even care if the whole stud just came out with the nut. Good old steel studs and aluminum heads. Dissimilar metals like to corrode. Well, I got my wish. The stud came with. I'm cool with that. That's okay to me. One down, 9 more to go. All right, now that we have the exhaust manifold separated from the head, it's time to go down below and let's start getting this thing into top dead center. This is our EcoBoost timing kit that we used on the ST and is going to also work on this engine. First thing we're going to go for is our dowel pin here, and I'll show you where that goes right now. All right, we're going to start by getting our crank position sensor off, 8 mil. We're going to disconnect our harness and take the crank sensor out because it obviously needs a good cleaning. There's been some oil leaking down here. So let's take care of that. I'm going to need 2 hands. There we go. I'll stick it on our workbench here. We know to clean that up. Now, if you can see back here, this is the bolt we need to get out so we can put that dowel pin in. However, we have a bracket here for our axle that is probably going to be in the way. I'm going to take this bolt out and see if we get anywhere. Otherwise, we're talking a lot of disassembly. All right, this is going to be totally hard to believe, but I was wrong. You do not use the dowel pin to get this into top dead center. It's actually a little more crude than that. So what we actually have to do is we have to take off our high pressure fuel pump and our vacuum pump, and we have to access the end of the cams. The ends of the cams have slots cut into them that'll be perfectly horizontal with the engine and flush whenever this is at top dead center. And the way you're supposed to tell that the crank is in top dead center is that this cutout will be lined up here, as shown on all data. So either way, let's start by getting the high pressure fuel pump and the vacuum pump off of this. All right, I took the plastic return line off the top of the high pressure fuel pump. Now I'm taking off the fuel line going to the injector rail, and I have it loosened up 17 millimeter on the high pressure fuel pump and down at the rail. And I'm taking the stud out for the line right now off the high pressure fuel pump, which is right there. But if I remember right, there's one down here too. Yep. All right, I can't exactly get to the other bracket holding the high pressure fuel line on, so I'm gonna go ahead and start taking the vacuum pump off. These are 8 mils. Pretty sure I have to take this cam cap off as well. There is our vacuum pump. Very sludge-tastic. We'll clean that up. I also inadvertently took a bolt out that was for the fuel line, so now we can get it off. Lucky. Ew. Do you see that? That is grody. That is really bad. Yuck. It just gets worse from there. Now we're going to take our high pressure fuel pump off. It's like maybe 14 millimeter. Ooh, 13. Feel where our nuts are. We got 2 here. one back here. All right, we're gonna start taking our high pressure fuel pump off the top of its housing, 8mm. This bracket is also stopping us up, and that is a 10mm. Take off our bracket. That takes care of that. Now we should be able to rock our high pressure fuel pump out. This is disgusting. Like, this lack of oil change just was bad for everything. Be aware there is a lobe in here that rides up and down to push that pump. We will clean this all up. Now I need to try to get this wiring harness off the one stud back here so I can get this pump off. Let's see if I can finagle my hands back there. There we go. Now I can get to all the bolts. Or should I say studs? See if we can get the ones behind since they're the hardest to get to. 2 studs. Oh.
1, 2,
All right, that should be all 4 studs out. There we go. Not the worst in there. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. All right, we will take our cap off the top. 10mm. Let's just pop in there with a little bit of pry bar. There we go. Just pry her up. Bingo. All right, I forgot to hit record. My bad. I do it a lot for some reason. But anyway, we got our old H16 socket back out, and we took off the adapter off the end of the intake cam. So you can see this fits inside of here. You use a 15/16 wrench to hold the cam, or maybe 23 or 24mm, which I don't have. But I used that wrench to hold the cam and got this out. So now we're on to the next step. All right, here's what I was talking about, the slots in the ends of the cams. Those will be horizontal whenever you're in top dead center. Now, you can be 180 degrees out as well, depending on where the crank is. Remember that the cams take 2 revolutions for every 1 revolution of the crank. So I'm going to put this in top dead center. I'm going to visualize it with a screwdriver in cylinder number 1. See where we end up on the crank pulley down below. See if it's actually on the mark like it says in all data. All right, I'm going to start rotating the crank till we get up to the top of the piston. All right, we should be about there, I think. Let's make sure our intake valves are closed. Yes. And it looks like we're sitting pretty horizontal there. All right, as you can see, we got our cam timing tool in. And I found a random bolt that I was able to stick down through one of the valve cover holes, and it's holding it in place. It was a nice tight fit. And I want to show you down below what the crank looks like. Remember that picture I showed you on all data where that gap would be on the tone ring? You can see it's pretty much right where it's supposed to be. All right, we got to get our starter out next. You can see I have our positive lead exposed. Here's our signal lead. Looks like about a 12mm on there, maybe a 12 down there. We'll see. We have to get the starter out because we have to access the teeth of the flywheel so that we can use our tool and lock the flywheel in place, which will keep the crank locked. Now we already have our cam locked by this tool right here, and the crank is currently staying locked because the timing chain's still on. Let's see if we can get our power wire off. Might got it loose enough that I can get it off my hand now. Oh yeah, that one's off. All right, I got the 10mm nut off. So now our signal wire and our hot wire can now come off of the starter. Our ground wire is down there. Let me see if I can zoom you in. There, you see it on there. That's also on a stud that holds the starter in. See if I can get my electro ratchet down there. Perfect. And that gets our ground wire off. And now I can get the stud next to the starter, which is going to be a little bit tighter. A lot tighter. And now for my next trick. This one is a bolt, and she's down here. And apparently she's a bit easier to get than the ST was, because I had to fight to get that on the ST. I remember. Woo, there we go. And the bottom bolt is out. Now our starter should come out. Let's see if that's true. Starter coming out. Starter. It has one of them dumb gasket things on it. like the old one did and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, now as you see, we can access the teeth of the flywheel. We have to put our tool in there to lock it in place. And that is this tool right here. And you see where it locks the flywheel, and then these go onto the starter holes. And now we're going to put our flywheel lock in place. Wow, is that locking right in there? Well, I'll be damned. Locked it right in there. Now we put our studs and everything back into place. Put our bolt in the bottom. Now our flywheel lock is in place. All right, now that we have this engine locked in top dead center, we're going to remove the engine mount because we need to do that to be able to get the front timing cover off. So what we're going to do is grab my jack and a board, and we're going to support the bottom of the oil pan and keep the engine held up while we take the top engine mount off. We're going to get this top bolt out of the engine mount. All right, now, can we get out of the way enough? Yes, we can. Looks like we can take our 15 millimeter out of the top of this mount. All right, now we have our engine locked into place at top dead center. And I gotta say something that I don't really like that much about this timing kit on a Land Rover. And that's that you can't use that dowel pin to hit the balance shaft to make sure you're at top dead center on cylinder 1. The way they want you to do it's a little iffy because it's relying that this engine didn't slip time at all. Checking the position of the crank pulley, which is also on friction washers, and the cam gears, which are also on friction washers, there just leaves that possibility that if you did slip time, you're not going to be at top dead center. That's why we verified it with the screwdriver in cylinder 1. That is pretty much a foolproof method to know that you're in top dead center, and being able to see where your valves are at as well. But anyway, we need to get this timing cover off, so we have to get the timing tensioner off so we can get to all the bolts around the timing cover and get the timing cover off. And that's where we're going now. Down here on the timing tensioner, there's a plastic cover we need to remove because there's a bolt underneath it. It actually was fairly easy. You just lift these two tabs up that lock it in place. All right, that is out. Very interesting tensioner for sure. All right, coming down below, we may need to take this charge air pipe off. Not sure. It is bolted to the cover. Then we got to get this crank pulley off as well. All right, we're going to take off our crank pulley. Now this should just slide out. And then you can see one of our friction washers in here. That'll come out when we take the cover off. We're also going to order a new front seal and put that in. But now we need to get this bolt that's holding the charge pipe. It might get in our way right here. I'm not sure why they needed to bring the bracket up here further. This tab is for no reason right here. We might remove that. I don't know how well you can see this, but I actually cut this part of the bracket off of that charge air pipe because it's just not necessary. It just gets in the way. There's still a welded support down below. It doesn't need more than that. So this is off, and this will get out of our way, and hopefully we won't have to take that charge air pipe off to get the front cover off. So we just toss that away. There's a lot of 8mm bolts, a couple bigger ones than that, maybe 10s. I apologize, but I'm not going to be able to show you this. It's just too tight quarters for me to get in there with a camera and one-handed get these bolts out. So in about 20 minutes for me and about 5 seconds for you, you're going to see the front cover off this engine. Okay, off camera, I got all of the bolts out. I'm pretty sure. I did double check. Now we're going to try to just loosen up the front cover and see if we can slip it out here. Well, that was pretty easy. Now let's see if we can slip it out.
That's what she said.
The AC line is in the way. We'll just move that out a little bit. And voila! Look at there. Front cover is off. It's honestly not that bad. I am leaking oil now though. Hey, so when you do this, drain your oil first. Okay, and there you see our timing covers off. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our tensioner out. There's two 10mm bolts there we need to get out. Now we can take out our tensioner. There is a little screen filter in here, which we will take out before we do all the timing components, and we will clean that filter out. Just judging by the oil staining and us going so far between oil changes, I want to clean that filter out before we do all the timing components. And now we can slip out our one tensioner. Now we should be able to slip our chain off the cams. Now we can take off our front side guide, 8mm. Let's take a look at our guides here real quick. There's really virtually no wear on this one. And this one looks really good as well. So that's a good sign. We did not jump any time. The timing chain was tight anyway. All right, now we can take our actual chain off. There she is. Now the reason I'm saving all these is because there's no specific Land Rover kit on Rock Auto for this engine. However, it is an EcoBoost, and I'm going to order from a Ford Escape. And I do believe all of these components are the same. I'm going to check by the part numbers, and I'm going to check by timing chain length, and just make sure everything is copacetic. It is finally time to get the cams out and get the cylinder head off, and that'll give us the first look at this piston on cylinder 3. Now, I have the fuel rail disconnected electrically, and I have the fuel line off of it, but I'm going to leave the fuel rail in because I do not want to disturb the injectors if I don't have to. Because once you take them out, you should reseal them and everything else. And they're not leaking, so I'd rather just leave them alone if possible. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to take our VVT solenoids out. I do have them marked intake and exhaust. I don't know if I'm going to reuse them or not, but just in case. Let's see if we can get our solenoids out. Now if I take the tool out that's holding the cams at top dead center, these cams are going to want to turn to their relaxed position. And I don't want to run the risk of bending any valves, which I don't think I would. And what we'll do is just start taking all the caps off and let it slowly relax that way. Looks like everything is 10 millimeter if I remember right. They're starting to relax now. You'll be able to see which caps are under the most tension because you can see like I can move this one. I can start to move that one now. But this one is tight. This one's loose. This one's loose. So pretty much all of the exhaust cam is loose, but a little bit of the intake got some pressure behind it. I think I'm just going to take the bridge off completely and just get that out of our way at this point. There we go. I think our exhaust cam is pretty well loose now. We're going to start with the intake cam and get it out. Might be able to lose this tool now. There we go. Before I take these caps off, oh, they are marked. Isn't that nice? It's labeled intake 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the eye is facing us. So we know exactly the way these caps go. And we're just going to start taking them out at this point. All right, let's go with our exhaust cam caps now. So are the exhaust cam caps labeled? They sure are. E2, facing along the backside, facing the exhaust manifold. All of these cam caps will be going through the parts washer because they are so dirty. Maybe I'll get myself an ultrasonic cleaner and do it that way. There's a dog hair, we don't want that in there. Our cams are now ready to come out. Intake cam coming, and exhaust cam coming out. Now we're going to get our head bolts out, and we're going to get this head off of here. Although, I see that I forgot to disconnect the coolant block. That's important, we got to do that first. This is where I make a huge, ginormous mess because I did not drain the coolant. All of the bolts are now out of the coolant block, and it's going to make a big mess. But I have a drain pan down below, and it really wasn't that bad. All right, now to take the head off. Kind of hate doing it with a breaker bar because I'm so afraid I'm going to strip the heads out, and then we're going to have a problem. Usually when these are loosening up, they crack. They make a cracking noise. That made no cracking noise. Actually, what's happening is I'm twisting my socket. Socket's twisted now. Now we're going to try and impact Torx and see what happens, and it fits. I do feel like this is what I used it before. Yep, it sure was. It is now time to take the head off. Let's see how we do here. There she is. We can get rid of this exhaust manifold gasket. I'm going to vacuum up the coolant out of here a little bit, and then we're going to take a look at that third cylinder. Nice thing is, it looks like cylinder 3 is all the way down, so it looks like we'll be able to leave this locked in top dead center, which would be really, really helpful, and take the bearing cap off down below and drive the piston up when we get the oil pan off. I took a look at the oil pan, and it looks fairly straightforward, minus maybe a couple things, but we'll see. I think it should be all right, though. Here's our head gasket. Let's go ahead and get that off there. This was an MLS gasket. That's nice. Cool. Let's do a little vacuuming. Want to see why we had no compression on cylinder 3? See that right there? That is a broken ringland, and that is letting compression by. Now looking at the other cylinders, we look all right in here. I'm going to wipe the cylinders out a little bit, especially cylinder 3. We're going to look at the wall, make sure everything's copacetic there, and we don't have any scoring or anything that we have to worry about. And as long as everything checks out, we should be able to do a pop and drop on this. We will take a nice microfiber in here and just wipe out the cylinder wall and take a look at what we got. We're looking good. I see cross hatching and everything there. And there's no lip or anything there where the broken piston is. It is interesting that it broke so smoothly. Almost looks like it was manufactured that way. It's just not. And I can see the ring, so we got compression failure. Now that we found why cylinder 3 has 0 compression in it, we need to pop that piston out and we're going to replace it. And in order to do that, I need to remove the oil pan and the balance shaft assembly so I can get to the connecting rod on cylinder 3 and pop that piston out. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to film. There's a lot in the way. And in their infinite wisdom, they bolted a bracket onto the oil pan that has the charge air pipe through it. And that might be a challenge. You're supposed to take that charge air pipe out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to take it apart at all. So we're going to see if we can finagle the oil pan off without it. All right, we need to pop off what I believe is our oil level sensor switch. Pop that off. Now it says to take your AC lines off of the compressor because we're going to have to actually loosen this up. This bolt off and this bolt off and just loosen the one that's way up in here. And then that'll back it off the oil pan enough we can get the oil pan off of there. But I'm not going to take our lines off because there's enough hose that's up in here to give us some wiggle room. So we should be all right. I have electric guns. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm here now. Off. Now we need to get up to that one. Way up there. Core support is in the way. Guess I'm going up over the wrench and not you. All right, we need to get our charge air pipe bracket off, 13 mil. And now this gives us some wiggle room. We should be able to get the oil pan off without having to remove this. Okay, I had to do a few things off camera here because I need my other hand. Give me a break, people. I'm a one-man operation. So anyway, I backed this bolt out, which there's not enough room to take it out because it hits this mount, but that's fine. We don't need to take it out completely. There's a sleeve in between here. You're supposed to be able to push back, at least according to the shop manual, but it's not sliding anywhere. So I tried, stuck a screwdriver up there, tried prying it back. It's not going anywhere. Whatever, we're gonna hope that once we get some of the bolts out of the oil pan, we can kind of just shimmy the oil pan over to the side first and get that out of there. And maybe then I can push it in. We'll see. We do still have the AC compressor in the way, but it is holding on with that one bolt we loosened up. I think it's enough room to slip this out. We're probably gonna be doing a lot of shimmying. Now I also loosened up this nut for the back bracket for the charge air pipe, and we'll have to tighten that back up, but we're gonna just leave that in there for now. It gives us a little more wiggle room. I also took out 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts holding the transmission to the oil pan. And this one in the front here was a shorter one than the other 3. That's more for me to know than you, so when I watch this back, I remember where it goes. So now I'm gonna go around to all the 10 millimeters and start taking the oil pan bolts out. And we're gonna start getting this loosened up. This is held on with sealant, so we're gonna have to probably tap it and pry a little bit. Just be careful, this is aluminum. You don't wanna break it or you'll be replacing the oil pan. And we'll just start getting it dropped. All right, I took the oil pan off and I'm sorry I couldn't show you that. It was just very miserable and I couldn't do it with one hand and have the camera running at the same time. But now we're down to this point. This is our balance shaft right here. And we are gonna mark where there's actually holes in the front of here. I'll show you a picture in a minute. We're actually gonna scribe where these are sitting. They're actually pointed straight at the lettering that's on the bottom of them. I don't know if I'm actually scribing anything or not. If I don't move them, I'll probably be all right. And there's 4 bolts to take these out, here, 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 and here. Do not take the E-bolts out. But first, I gotta get the oil pickup tube off. And that's 10 millimeters. Oh, wait a minute, they're not 10. They're 8. Why wouldn't we just make those 10s like everything else? Now we should be able to take this out. There we go. And there is a seal we should probably replace. And it looks like we've got 13s to take the balance shaft out. Wait a minute. Are these not 13s? They're bigger than 13. All right. Back for another socket. Is it a 14? You know what we should do? We should make all of the bolts different sizes down here. That would make things nice. Looks like they go the whole way up into the cylinder head. Balance shaft out. Well, how nice. Right here is cylinder 3. We can get right to our connecting rod. And here comes our rod cap. And now we should be able to drive our piston up to the top. I'll show you these bearing caps in a minute and the bearings. We'll take a look at those. I feel like I might be able to just push that up relatively easy right here. And this is our piston, piston number 3. And you can see our catastrophic failure that happened here. And oh, what? We got more. So this is the bottom skirt of the piston, and you can see your oil rings right here. And oh, there's a piece here that was ready to let loose, which probably would have blew this engine completely. This piece is cracked all the way through here, and it's literally just the oil rings holding it together. Oofta. This could have been very catastrophic, more so than it already was. Anyway, piston out. As you can see, we were literally just a few strokes away from that piston completely grenading and this block being completely trashed. But because it held in there and did not destroy the cylinder wall, we could just pop a new piston in with new rings, new bearings, and put this engine back together and get it back on the road, which I'm excited for. And as you can see here, I have a complete table full of parts ready to put this engine back together. So stay tuned for the next video where we get this engine completely back together and we hear it run for the first time since this little rebuild we did. I know it's going to run great because I have a lot of faith in what we're doing here, and I have a lot of faith in myself, and I'm blessed to be able to be here to show you how to do it, and I thank you all for your support. But in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Well, I dropped something. And dropping my ratchet. Get over here, you. What did I do with my 13mm socket? I did get it out. Here we go again. I got a tool out, and I don't know what I did with it, and I literally just had it a few minutes ago. 13mm. Where are you? 13mm. Here, 13mm. We have to take the starter out because we have to access the flywheel teeth. We have to get the starter out because we have to access the teeth of the starter. Oh my God, did I quit recording again? A few 10mm. It does look like it might be 10mm. Oh wait, I'm taking the wrong damn thing out, that's why. My bad. Now that we found the problem, now that we found why cylinder 3 has zero compressor. Now that we found why zero compression piston ring. Now that we found why cylinder 3 has zero compression, we need to pop that piston out. And in order to do that, I need to remove the oil pan So stay tuned for the next video.